Food Safety Show. Today's topics in today's program should excite every human within the sound of my voice. The topics are food safety for travel and the suggestions to help make your travel more safe with regards to you getting sick on your trips or your family members. Next topic, we're going to talk about the latest rage in human consumption of nicotine through the use of e-cigarettes or electronic cigarettes or the products that are currently being sold as a replacement to tobacco cigarettes. We're also going to talk about restroom sanitation. When you go out to a gas station or a restaurant, and you will be shocked and hopefully informed on how to improve your entire experience and improve the experience of everyone else who follows you at that facility. We're also going to be talking about pharmaceutical ads, advertisements on television. Are they good or bad for consumers? We're going to talk about that entire industry. Let's start with our first topic, food safety travel suggestions. Let's begin with our first slide. What are we talking about in today's world more than anything else? It's travel. Travel within the United States, from one city to another, from one state to another, and from the United States and back from one country to another. What should be one of our primary concerns when we travel? What we should be concerned more than seeing a tour, walking in a certain spot, and later consuming, we should be worried about food poisoning more than anything else. If you've ever had an experience or know someone who has gotten sick abroad, it's no fun. It ruins everything. Food sickness is a real increased risk. Why? Because we were customized to eating, living in a certain geographic area. I travel quite a bit. I go to a lot of different cities, many states. I travel in aircraft, rental cars. I'm continuously exposed to new organisms. How can you or anyone else in your group reduce the risk of becoming food poisoned or sick because you ate a product? This particular assembly of pictures is very interesting to me because when you are locked up in an aircraft on the far left, you are breathing the air of 100+ people at the same time for hours. When you travel, you are touching things like that gentleman with his laptop. The most contaminated item within your personal range of possessions is your cell phone. It's filthy. If I did a bacterial swab on the cell phones of 10 people, I would find 10 contaminated items. Children on a travel excursion don't have the experience or the exposure to multiple bacterial pathogens. They need to be instructed on the best methods. Parents should take extreme caution in instructing their children these following suggestions. On the far right, you see a gentleman who is facing the throne. That's what we call it in the food business. Vomiting and projectile vomiting are particular hazards or indicators that you are sick. Next slide, please. What we are doing when we consistently wash our hands is we are guaranteeing that everything we've touched, from a light switch to an adjustment on a headset to even walking down a hallway and touching that hallway in an aircraft, our hands touch everything. Light switches, they touch the walls. We need to scrub our hands consistently and constantly. Why? Because we have those accumulated organisms. We use soap. Soap is also known as a surfactant. It lifts up whatever organisms you have and you rinse them down the water. The soap doesn't kill. Some of them have some bactericide, but the fact is the soap doesn't kill. It just releases it so you can wash it off. What they do in the hospitals, infection control, is they sing one verse of Happy Birthday to You as a time measure. I suggest that to be a very fundamental rule of hand sanitation. Carrying sanitizing wipes with the antibacterial ingredient is a very convenient solution, and I'll tell you why. You might say, Andy, I wash my hands with soap and water. Well, if there's no soap and water available or that water might be contaminated, it's not a bad idea to have these towels that have been sanitized with some antibacterial solution. But what you want to do is you want to scrape the organisms off of your hands onto that cloth and then go underneath the fingernails and then throw that towel away. Also, you may want to carry a hand sanitizer. I'm going to ask a question you probably don't know the answer to. Hand sanitizers are usually alcohol-based. How long does it take for an effective residence time? What that means is how long does it take for that alcohol-based solution to be on your hands before it starts killing a significant load of bacteria? 5 minutes. So you can carry a portable one with you. And in all cases, if that all fails and you don't have that, try to get as many of these surgical gloves with you at all times. And if there's ever a questionable opportunity, you're touching a keyboard that someone has touched, or 500 people, a mouse, use your gloves. Next slide, please. In this particular suggestion from me to you, when you travel, particularly in foreign countries, or at locations you're not really sure of the sanitation, purchase or request that your food be prepared on disposable, single-use plates, cups, and utensils. Why? The quality of water, many places, is contaminated. Toledo, Ohio, and I was involved in this because one of our clients is in Ohio, actually closed their water system due to an E. coli outbreak. So my suggestion to everybody that's listening to this show, insist on single-use disposable plates, cups, and forks. It's not a big issue, but it could be if you become ill. It's always better to be safe than sorry. Next slide, please. Here's an issue that you will be asked many times in your life. If you're going to have a beef or meat product, you will be asked, so how would you like that prepared? What they're asking you is, what is your tolerance for the potentiality of E. coli or another EHEC subspeciation of E. coli? By the way, Jack in the Box served hamburgers that were undercooked many years ago. One lady had to have her liver replaced as a result. When they ask you, how would you like your steak prepared? My suggestion is always to everyone watching this show is to have your request be in the well done category. It reduces your risk significantly with beef. Poultry. Poultry should also be extremely well done. Why? With beef, it's 165 degrees or more. You are killing all the bacteria inside that piece of meat. Poultry is hotter because chickens live in salmonella poop. They don't have an opportunity to take a shower during their lives. They actually live around their excrement their entire life cycle. What I would ask to be extremely cautious if you're on medication that reduces your immune system is to request that all your food be brought to you after boiling. You can have a piece of fish. It does have a lot of what they call parasites, but that if you boil it for 30 minutes, steaming hot like the picture on the right, you don't have to worry about going home with a parasite or a roundworm in your stomach or a hookworm or a fluke ending up in your brain. These amoebas, these parasites, are horrible. They'll be with you forever. There's no killing them. Next slide. As we look at food, I'm going to mention to you these standards. And you, in your own judgment, you make the call. Take that thermometer as you're served your food. And this may be somewhat paranoid. I'm okay with that. But if you're traveling in an extremely primitive area, think about this. Buy a thermometer. I bought this one actually at Bed Bath & Beyond. It cost me $12. It has a little sleeve. You simply insert it in your meat product or your food product when it's served to you. And if it's not hot enough, have it sent back to the kitchen food preparation area and have it recooked to the proper temperature if you're particularly sensitive to food and bacterial pathogens. Again, safe food is boiled. That's 212 degrees Fahrenheit for at least 30 minutes. You can put anything in there. You can eat it, even the water. Beef, 165 degrees. Poultry, I have 165 here. It's a medium risk, better at 180. And these thermometers can be anywhere from $13 like this one up to $400, more like a food safety inspector from the county would use. Next slide. All right, we talked about this before. There are germs. Let me mention one thing about the germ theory. It's not universal. I could take you to some countries, and they will take a knife that's preparing food, and they'll take a greasy old rag and clean it off and then continue chopping. I've had it happen to me, and people laughed because I asked that person to sterilize that knife before preparing my food. So I have these. This is a good example of an ultraviolet light wand. You simply run it across the area and it'll kill all the DNA, destroy the DNA of the bacteria. I'll be marketing these very quickly, but these are a very effective tool to carry with you and your families as you go checking into a hotel room. I'll give you my personal experience. I was in Colorado on a business assignment, and there were bed bugs in my room. I travel quite a bit. The hotel accused me of bringing them, but they were there. I never had that experience. It's horrible. They itch. And a lot of times they lay their eggs in an area where you will be placing your clothes. You'll be placing your suitcase, and you will drag those bed bug eggs back to your home, and you will contaminate your own home, and they're very difficult to get rid of. There's a lot of psychological paranoia. I had it happen. But if you run an ultraviolet light across, let's say, your sheets, they live closer to attack the host and to feed. That's you as a human. They drink your blood. So it's proven against bacteria and germs. It's proven for infection control in hospitals. I strongly suggest you think about it, and you also use a wand wherever you're sharing a personal item like your cell phone, your laptop, or you're sharing it with multiple people. They all have different hygienic standards. They may not share the same level as you. You'll find it very helpful. Next slide. All right. Here's one that is without question one of the most important rules for you as you travel. On the far left, you will see sanitized milk. It's actually been pasteurized. That means take it up to a certain temperature. We already know about that temperature range, 165, 180. And then that guarantees that anything in that milk has been killed that will harm you. People that drink whole milk are taking their lives in their hands, and I disagree with that practice. Bottled water is a risk because not all bottled water meets the same standards. I'm actually a consultant to the government of Mexico, and I was doing a test on 10 vendors of water. They didn't all pass. Some of that water is horrible. It still has viable organisms. Drinking water tablets are something you ought to consider taking in your emergency pack as you travel. You can drop those tablets in horrible putrid water, and it will sanitize the water. It won't smell very good. It won't be very tasty, but it'll be safe for you. Another thing you might think about buying is, you see that woman in the middle? She is drinking from a horrible river, and she's using what's known as a filter, a portable filter. Now, the water may not taste very good, but it still will be filtered out, and it'll take the larger organisms out and restrict them in those lower areas. It has so many uses. The safest thing you can ever do when you're traveling, and let this burn in your brain, please, is to boil that water for at least 30 minutes. It'll kill everything. And on the far right-hand side of this screen, you will see parasites that actually came from laboratory tests of water in rivers in horrible areas. Now, if you walk in that water and you have a break of your skin, please stay out of it, because those organisms will latch into your skin, and you may get horrible diseases. Next slide. All right. Here's a rule you might want to think about when you travel and they serve you a plate of fresh fruits or vegetables. A, they're not cooked. So whatever was in that water that was used to clean it off or prepare it will be entirely baptizing the surface of that fruit or vegetable. The water may be unsafe and unfit for human consumption that they use. Now, it's highly unlikely, but that's a risk you want to calculate. You only want to eat fresh vegetables or fruit from an area that you know the water is safe. It's been filtered, it's been treated prior to use, and many large hotels, their filters were installed when the hotel began, but they don't replace them. There's something about the brains of people, they don't want to replace consumables. And filters in water should be replaced or reviewed every 6 months or less. Don't eat any fruit or vegetable that you haven't peeled and taken care of yourself. That's a rule you might want to think about next time you get the runs in a foreign location and you're on the toilet. You have a 7-day vacation, you're on the toilet for 6. Next slide. That conclusion of don't do this and don't do that is very important for me to communicate to you. As we think about our next topic, electronic cigarettes, think about your children. Let's look at that next segment after these commercial messages.